So I should have cleared my throat before we hit record. But sorry, I'm going to mute myself and then cough lots so that we don't do this later, and then just cancel all this and start again.
Hello and welcome to Bat Flips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. I am your host this evening, Russell Easom, and we have not talked about baseball as a group for a while. You heard us have a conversation with Tyler Gillum, but I'm delighted to be with Ben Carter and Rob Navarez today to talk all things MLB. So Ben, start us off. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks, Ross. Yeah, we've left our World Series recap pod a little bit late, so hopefully no one is going to get any spoilers from this one.
And Rob, apart from looking like you needed about 15 layers to stay at any ambient temperature in the room that you are right now, how are you doing?
I'm having an odd day. I'm very, very, very tired, and I sort of what what I've migrated to is using pockets that aren't there. I just for some reason today I've constantly been putting things in pockets that I don't actually have, and most of them have dropped on the floor and I've heard them go down. But there have been things that there are notes I don't have. So yeah, I've yeah, personal pocket issues if I'm honest. It's not really appropriate to baseball, but like they have pockets which they put their gloves in. So there's your link. We're in.
Cheers, Rob. We wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, I think where we are in the postseason and off-season and free agency market, I think there can be only one place to start this conversation, and that is the Los Angeles
Angels.
Dodgers
Oh,
and Roki Sasaki. I think firstly, let's just talk about like Sasaki and did we feel like this was there a chance for him to go anywhere else? Do we feel that this was almost so inevitable that they just went through a glorious process to wound Blue Jays fans again for thinking that they might get a decent Japanese phenom? Ben?
I think it's felt like the obvious pick ever since Sasaki announced he was going to, be moving to the US next season. I think we all penciled in the Dodgers as a team, and for good reason, right? World Series champion, one of the best rosters around. They already have two major Japanese stars. They've shown an ability to develop elite level pitching. It kind of felt like they ticked all the boxes that we thought would be important to Sasaki. I do take him at his word that he did go into this process with an open mind and he was open to, teams to put their best foot forward and was going to listen to what they had to say and would choose the team he felt was best suited to, yeah, his desires and what he felt mattered most. But I think even knowing that, it was hard to see a team that wasn't the Dodgers putting a better pitch forward. So yeah, and not a shock by any means, but I do think it was something that I give him the benefit of the doubt that he had an open mind, and this wasn't a handshake agreement that was done in November that they've dragged out for 3 months to make other teams sweat.
Rob, your frown there suggests that you may think otherwise.
I mean it's not the best disguised conspiracy theory we've heard come out of that country recently. I mean, it was obvious. Like day one, we all knew he was going there, didn't we? I mean, yeah, we played about with, oh, it could fit with the Padres, but I I mean, if you took a poll of 100 people who knew anything about baseball, and I don't protest to be anybody who knows a lot about baseball, I know a little bit about baseball. The whole range of people, from experts to idiots, we all probably had the Dodgers down as fairly obvious, very, very early doors. And the industry doesn't really make much, doesn't try and even pretend too much that they don't have these handshake deals done in advance. So I'm fairly skeptical that the Blue Jays and Padres part of it all was anything other than a little bit of a smokescreen to try and stop them from getting sued. Personally, um, I did enjoy the Blue Jays part of it all, though. They're anyone else feel that we're sort of rolling into kind of a sort of Metsy territory with the Blue Jays failing to sign people now? There's a lol
Always the
Mets element.
bridesmaid.
Yeah, there's they've got a shtick now. They've got a thing like the Mets did. It's a tragic thing, and it's only going to get worse for the Blue Jays as they seem to be moving out of contention, other than signing boppers in the outfield. It doesn't. This could be their thing for the next few years. But back to Sasaki. Yeah, come on, he was always going to the Dodgers, wasn't he? Like, could we honestly really think he was ever going anywhere other than the Dodgers? And no one can hand on heart really say they thought he was going elsewhere.
No, and I think that is the key point. I think that this is another like straw that has kind of got close to breaking the camel's back for everybody and the Dodgers. Like, it wasn't just they threw more money at him than anybody else. He went there because actually it's the best place to go. Like, yes, it does have some advantages that other places do not have. It is a West Coast team. It is in a high metropolitan area, so they can have like revenue. But the Dodgers didn't get where they were today because of just what the Dodgers did. They've got there because of what everybody else has done. And I think it's easy in isolation to be like, boo the Dodgers, they're spending a lot of money and we need to introduce a salary cap, we need to introduce a salary floor and all these other things. But actually, you have to think that to me, this current Dodgers team and squad starts with Boston Red Sox deciding that don't want to pay Mookie Betts and David Price at the same time, so they trade Mookie Betts. Like, am I wrong in thinking that like we should be like this is that? There's Otani gave the Angels we gave the Angels a chance to offer him the same contract that the Dodgers did, and they refused to do it. Glasnow was basically not the Rays did not want to pay him what he was making, so they traded him. Snell, nobody wanted to pay him what he's worth, and so the Dodgers have come back, even though they didn't really want him to get him last season. Like, they're in this position because other teams have let their effort down, and it's allowed the Dodgers to become a behemoth without trying, really. Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. You can look at it that way. The Dodgers have done it all. They've spent the money and they've been clever as well. They are the best of the Yankees. They are the best of the Tampa Bay Rays. It's all in one team. Um, when you start hearing talks about salary caps, and we know that is fairly anti-labor in general, but you get to a point where I don't think we're there yet, but we are nearing a point where you say, okay, the Dodgers have won. They've done it. They've won baseball. They've worked it out. They are now that far ahead. You know, uh, is it an insurmountable distance? Have they got that head start that it's really not going to allow anybody to catch up? So, do we almost at this point say, okay, yep, Dodgers have done it. Tick. We need to do something different now because this is just going to keep going the way it looks like it's going. So, yeah, the Dodgers did it all right. There was nothing to say here. Yeah, the Dodgers were bad. They've done it wrong. Yeah, they signed some questionable players, but otherwise they've just done a better job than the other teams. So how can you diss them for that? They
I
won.
mean, they're the total blueprint for how a professional sports organization should be run, right? Like if you are in any sport, I think you're looking at the Dodgers as the hallmark because yes, they spend the money and that gets the headlines, but the way they treat their players is top class. The way they understand the scouting system and the draft is top class. The way that they have their players train is top class. Keeping arms healthy, maybe not quite so top class lately, but generally speaking, they just do everything right. They pay their players, they bring them in, they treat them well. By all accounts, they are the best organization to work for in baseball, and they just happen to be the best at winning games too. And like, I don't think they've put a step wrong. We can't blame them for wanting to hoard all this talent, right? Nothing they have done has been an issue. Whether that is good for baseball or not is a totally different, somewhat stupid question. But I don't see how you can criticize the Dodgers for making these moves. Like they've done what is in their best interest, and what is in their best interest is to have all the best players at baseball.
Yeah, I think the in the podcast that John and I have recorded with Kyle Bodie, which will come out after this, we talk a little about player development there, and the Dodgers are just they're light years ahead of other teams. They just haven't bothered to do this, and having that basically gives them the ability to be like, oh, we can trade for like bets. We can trade for Glasnow and still not really be in a worse position because actually we've got tons of people that are at this level to kind of come through and they build a system and they build the culture for where this all works. I think something that people maybe don't quite get is that the Dodgers still probably only have like a 1 in 4 chance of actually like winning. Their variance in baseball is so much that we haven't had a back-to-back winner in 20 4 years. Like this just doesn't hasn't happened in baseball. Baseball has a high level of variance, and like are we getting to this point of like giving up to the Dodgers too soon? Like this isn't like Man City or Barcelona in European football. Like there are easy opportunities for other teams to be close or as good. The Braves are still a phenomenal team. The Yankees are still a great team. Like the Mets are just still gonna continue to spend, and we're probably gonna have to have discussions about boo the Mets as well. But because the Dodgers have won, and they won last year, that's what I think makes everybody angry.
It's also, you can kind of just pencil them in as like top of the NL West again, 100 wins again. The postseason in baseball is great because it throws up surprises, right? Like you say, any team, however good they are, can have 3, 4 bad days, dumped out the postseason. And I, for one, will take great glee in that happening if it does happen to the Dodgers next year. But it does kind of mean like the next 162 games of the Dodgers, okay, well, somewhere or another, they're winning between 100 and 115 games. Like we can kind of say that now with as close to total confidence as you can in that happening. And not that that's bad, that's the whole point of creating a baseball team to win lots of games. But it does make the sport more boring for me anyway. Like I'm not particularly interested in the NL West division race this year because the Dodgers are winning it. No matter what the Padres do at this point, the Dodgers are winning it.
Over the last 5 years, they've won 40 more games than the next best team. And that next best team is the Braves, who have been phenomenal for the last 5 years. So you're absolutely right that the offseason is a crapshoot. But I completely agree with Ben as well in that it's 100 games penciled in every single year. Just the NL West has become uncompetitive. The only little shred of okay, is it going to last forever? Maybe it will change. Is you hark back not too distant memories to the Yankees doing exactly the same things, and now they've not dropped off. They're still an absolute beam off, but they're not. It may not last forever, but right now they are head and shoulders, and it is head and shoulders better than the next team if you take out the crapshoot that is the postseason. They're just going to win unless something silly happens. The NL West every single year for the foreseeable future. Something weird has to change before that's going to stop happening.
Rocky's resurgence.
Rocky's resurgence aside, I think that um do one of the things I would is this a good thing that we'd have to, for choice of a better word, a heel in baseball now, and it's not a heel because it's not the Astros and they cheated and everybody hated them because of that. We're going back to like talking about the Yankees in the 90s and into the early noughties team. We have a team that everybody wants to win against, that wants to like upset. Like to me, I've probably spent most of the last 10 years actually thinking like, you know what, yeah, the Dodgers let them win one. And after the COVID season again, you're still probably kind of like, yeah, you know what, like they do probably deserve another one. Now you're not going to find many people or any people who aren't Dodgers fans who are going to support the Dodgers. Personally, I think that's actually a good thing for the sport that you now have a team to root against as well as teams to root for.
Totally agree. I don't think you can blame the Dodgers, but absolutely you can hate the Dodgers, and my God, I will. This is exactly sometimes what a sport needs is the big bad, nasty team that hoards all the talent, that does everything right, that looks like they're going to win every year. Yeah, you better believe 29 other teams are going to be hate watching the Dodgers this year, waiting for them to slip up and hoping they get dumped out of the playoffs. And I think that is good for the sport. Like Yankees fans rejoice. Maybe your long national nightmare is over and you won't be the most hated team in the sport, at least for a year or two. So yeah,
You just cut them way deeper than anything else could by saying they're no longer the heels.
I was going to say they might not be happy to take on that burden or remove that. But yeah, I totally agree. Like I don't know that this is good for the sport, but one of the ways it definitely is you have a villain, and the Dodgers are now that villain.
I don't hate on them yet, if I'm honest. I think I've probably still got one more World Series in them before I can really start hating on them. I like the players too much right now. Who doesn't like Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani? I mean, come on, they're still really fun to watch right now.
I can find a way to hate them.
I think like I was genuinely surprised. Like I was when I saw the Roki Sasaki had signed for the Dodgers. I was with my partner who is from California and a Dodgers fan, and she was really happy. And I was generally like bollocks.
Mm.
Like, I really don't like this because it's
Mm.
like I wanted like a little bit more of like the talent in different places. The I'm a little bit scared of cornering the Japanese market, which is like uh, has the potential to get like out of hand. Not that I think that there's anything the Dodgers have done wrong, or probably anything that you can do to legislate it, because it's a free labor market. You should be allowed to let the players choose like where they want to go. We should want that in most regards. But it did upset me. Am I still going to probably watch more Dodgers games than any other team apart from like Cleveland? The answer is yes, because they have the players that I want to watch. Maybe the exception of the Cubs, just because we have the UK friendly times over here. But I think enough people are going to turn on them to make it like a little bit more interesting for some like away games for the Dodgers, where like I don't think any of those players probably would have been booed, but they could be getting booed. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with this new kind of stage of where like the Dodgers are at.
If the Yankees are the evil empire, what are we calling the Dodgers? What's their
Uh,
nickname?
we need a different sci-fi franchise. Uh, are they Klingons?
Dominion or the Dodgers Dominion. To be fair, if it's all about money, they should be the Ferengi, but they're actually spending their money instead of holding on to it. So maybe they definitely aren't. Uh,
What were those bad guys in Battlestar Galactica with the lights that went back and forth? What were they called? I'm not big on sci-fi, not
This
gonna
is all
lie.
going over
But
my
whatever
head.
they are,
yeah, but then there were just robots that were just like interested in just culling humanity for a scientific purpose or a religious purpose, depending on which Battlestar Galactica you've watched or whatever. But
I mean, like seconds of an
So-
advert, if I'm honest.
Sounds like sabermetrics to me.
Okay, I think the other things that have been obviously been discussed about this is like what could be done to stop a team getting like a wealth of talent like this again. Have you seen
Killer
any?
death robots. I think we just didn't we just cover that off?
Or to be fair,
Pay attention, Russ. Pay attention.
we could force the reallocation of the team to Roy, and then then they might
Yeah,
lose
there's lots
the.
of death robots there. I'm told on good
But like,
authority.
have you guys seen any decent suggestions out there about ways to like mitigate this? Because I'm gonna come out here and tell you right here, right now, that a salary floor and a salary cap are not only bad for labor, and in general, in my viewpoint, not the way that we should go. They're not happening because they're bad for labor. So the Players Association are not going to want to do it. And there's some owners that don't want to do it. So you're not even getting a unanimous owner front against the Players Association here. So it seems very unlikely that those sorts of proposals are even feasible.
I've not seen anything particularly good personally in terms of how you fix this. I don't know if there necessarily is a problem that needs to be fixed anyway. I think this is part of, admittedly to an extreme, the kind of, flow of balance that happens between certain teams at certain times. And yes, this has gone to an extreme, but I don't think we necessarily need to fix anything. The issue maybe I have with it is more on the deferral side. That does seem like effectively a loophole that's been exploited by the Dodgers. I don't know how, now that Pandora's box has been opened, you close it though. You can't suddenly be like, no more deferrals when the Dodgers and other teams now have started to get in on the action. So I don't know how you stop that from happening, but something to prevent that from becoming such an obvious way to circumvent, issues with cash flow or paying players right now would be good. But I guess you credit the Dodgers. They're writing these checks. They're going to have to pay them eventually. If they want to defer the money and players are happy to do it, who's to stop them? So yeah, I don't think there's an easy solution, and I would argue we don't need to force one. If I know that the sports aren't comparable, but the Warriors built a dream team in the NBA, right? And Kevin Durant joined them, and that felt like a moment that was like, oh God, this sport's just become really boring. They're going to be champions forever now. The dynasty didn't last that long in the end, right? Like these things come, they go, players get older, clubs change, phases come and go. So I'm not too concerned for sort of the long-term health of the sport. But I'm interested to see what ideas people much smarter than me can come up with for ways that we can improve the current sort of balance in the league.
I mean, when it comes to balance, that's part of it. I mean, you're not watching a team just blow past every team. This is the beauty of baseball. The Dodgers are going to lose one less game than the average team. In 10. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about you know running so far away at the top of the league that you see them, you play them, you think, well, I've got no chance of winning this. It's not like football in our country where the top of the league is going to dominate the bottom of the league. It's going to be embarrassing. You know, the Rockies will beat the Dodgers in the next couple of years. That's still going to happen, and that's why it's okay because it doesn't matter that they're a long way ahead. Every game, or almost every game, unless the White Sox are involved, it is going to be competitive. So it's okay. You're right. It's okay. Ideas though, snipers, really big shoes, chocolate bats, um, uh, mandatory starvation, uh, no sleep. If you win too many games in a row, you have to not sleep for 2 days.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm gonna have to say,
uh,
Rob, I think your ideation for the Savannah Bananas was a little bit better than your ideation today. You got some pretty positive
I
comments from
did, but
Tyler
I
on your
went to
first view.
vanilla. I went to vanilla, and I've listened to that pod. And if you haven't yet, go back and listen to it. Russell and John spoke. Well, you didn't do much speaking at all. Like he just kept going. It was a fantastic pod. Listen to the Savannah Bananas pod if you haven't already. But yeah, my ideas were too vanilla, and I'm disappointed. And I want another go at it, if I'm quite honest. So next time we have him on, I'm taking it to him.
Yeah, they were
Challenge
they were so
accepted.
vanilla that we didn't even go with your last one, which was the dirt is lava. It felt just like.
I meant it literally. But anyway, yes.
Okay, okay. Enough about the Dodgers. Let's talk about the other top free agents that are out there. So, looking at what's been signed, there's probably a class of five now that is left that you might be slightly shocked they haven't signed. There could be reasons, but these are clearly the top guys that are out there and that teams, if they want to improve themselves, they really should be focusing on. So the first one, and probably the top one, is Alex Bregman. Ben, why do we think that Bregman hasn't like signed yet? Do we think there was a smaller window? Are people questioning like his abilities? What has been the crux so far?
I don't know. I sort of saw the sort of heavy rumors linking him to the Red Sox what feels like a very long time ago now, and kind of wrote that down in my head as a done deal, and I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't been completed yet. I don't know if it's a matter of him wanting an extra year, extra money, an opt out. That does seem to be what's holding up a few of these deals right now, is the kind of slight tension of teams holding strong with where they are, players holding strong with where they are, and it's probably only a year and $20 million apart, but kind of hoping the other blinks first. And I suspect there'll be a slight domino effect where once one falls, all of them do, because none of them want to get stuck in that situation where they don't have a team, and we go into February, and we go into March, and we go into April, and it gets very embarrassing. So I suspect we'll see these major free agents signed soon. But with Bregman, yeah, I still think the Red Sox probably make the most sense for him. But maybe there are concerns about the length of contract you give him. He's not a young free agent. A defensive home for him. He's never been an elite, or certainly hasn't for a while, third baseman. But he still is an impact bat, a guy who can plug and play in the heart of the lineup, and who, I think, certainly the Red Sox, certainly the Cubs. I can't think of who else might be in play for him, but there are plenty of teams that could use him. I mean, God, half the teams in the league don't have, anyone decent in their lineup, so they should be at least inquiring and seeing where the negotiations have got to.
Yeah, I think for me when I look at the players positions, the teams, get the words out there right, that I thought really should be after him. Like I really think the Brewers, like it could be. We know that they don't make massive like free agent signings, and this
Splashes.
probably would be quite a difference from their approach, but what they have at first base and third base does not look particularly amazing, and I think that um, would be a good option. But I do agree with you that I just thought Bregman to the Red Sox was a done deal. Like, it just seemed to be where the conversation was. All of the stuff with Cora, and like having all of their history together, and really talking about being like, oh yeah, I thought he was like he can be an amazing second baseman or whatever, and like and all of this little loving just kind of felt that it was a done deal. Like, do we have we listened too much to kind of talk with no kind of like substance, Rob, or are we just foul of kind of the what the internet machine has given us?
Well, I mean, who knows really? I think he's possibly fallen a little bit foul of the cult of Alex Bregman. It can't have helped him. He's probably the last person who is suffering a little bit of rep from the Astros scandal.
Well,
Um,
if Beltran gets put into the Hall of Fame, yeah.
yeah, like everyone else has sort of managed to get out of it one way or another, but he stayed with the team. He hasn't been particularly sorry. So I think yeah, maybe he's still stuck in that a little bit. Um, yeah, he's starting to decline, but I think he's still good. He's going to find a decent team. He's going to end up with someone Tigersy, and he'll be fine, and he'll get a decent deal for it. It won't be an amazing deal, might be a pillow contract, but he's he's fine. He'll be fine. He's not going to go poor.
All right, so let's name a name so we can a team so we can all be proved right or wrong in the future. So I'm going to say Brewers. Ben,
I'll stick with Red Sox.
Rob.
I'm having the Tigers.
Okay, so we'll move on then to probably the second big hitter that's out there that I'm still uncertain. I'm really uncertain why nothing happened with Pete Alonso. We had a really big rush on first base activity before the end of the year. There was the signings of like Goldschmidt and Santana and Naylor being traded. Kind of a lot of teams really just went for the cheaper, the kind of like 1 year deals to kind of sort out this. Is is Pete gonna get a big deal? Are we really gonna see Pete fall onto like a pillow contract, Rob?
I think Pete Alonso's. I find him a very interesting character. I think Pete Alonso. Nobody believes in Pete Alonso more than Pete Alonso. I think. Uh, I, I've never met the man, but I kind of get the vibe off of him that he's the sort of person who refers to himself in the third person. Um, Pete Alonso wants a big contract. It's that kind of thing, and he believes in. Again, never met the man. I just get the feeling that he believes in himself so much that he wants to be the biggest contract first baseman of all time, but he's just not that, and it's the taking the home run derby so seriously that kind of adds into the whole mystique. Like I really can't escape the Pete Alonso's in it for Pete Alonso. I think he's just going to muff it all up by wanting far too much, and I think that's what it can't be anything else because like he's a very very good first baseman. There is no other reason not to have Pete Alonso on your team unless he's just a little bit too believing in himself, and I think that's got to be it, hasn't it?
Ben?
I don't know, you say you've never met Pete Alonso. I don't think he's going to want to meet you after this, Rob. How rude. I kind of agree. Like I think he was slightly unlucky in the first base market, like you say. Some of the teams that needed one filled the hole very quickly, going underneath, where Pete would probably want to be contract wise, and that's maybe left him in a tough spot now, where like teams have seen where the market's been set and they don't want to massively overpay for what they see as a fairly similar player. Again, older for a free agent. You're not getting much defensive value from him. Yes, you've got power, but we're talking about a 2 to 3 win player at best. You don't pay premiums for those these days. Teams are too smart to just say first baseman hit home runs, signed to lots of money. Doesn't really happen anymore. So it seems from what I've read that the Mets are the team that were motivated to be on him, but then now have decided they're going to pivot away from him because he wanted an opt out or he wanted an extra year. I forget what the exact details were, but I think he's going to end up getting 3 years and 60, 70 million. I think it's going to be something of a pillow contract, as you say, Russ, for a pillow-shaped man. So it might be exactly what he was hoping to have gotten out of free agency. But I just think that's kind of where he was going to end up regardless, because yeah, teams just don't pay that much for a first base only right-handed power hitter who doesn't offer much else. No disrespect, Pete.
Are we are we really playing Pete down this much? Like, I think people have just not what he's done for the 6 years, the power, the consistent power that he's had. Yeah, not a good glove at first. Might need to be like in DH in a few years' time. But I feel this is another just indictment of some teams don't want to spend money. Like he was quite clearly the best uh hitting first baseman out there, has not been picked up. He's was clearly one of the top hitters out there. Obviously, like he's not in a Soto level. That's I think I can at least have that one put out there to go with that. But I feel that we're really kind of saying that he's consistently hit well. He's consistently hit well against lefties and righties. Not got too much of a platoon thing that you could think could get worse. And teams have just gone meh, like pass. And I know that MLB doesn't have the thing that it did maybe 15, 20 years ago, where your big DHs were getting good contracts to kind of hit out there and mash. And maybe a lot of teams don't want to have a designated DH anymore. There aren't many teams beyond, I think, what maybe the Astros and Dodgers. I'm really thinking off the top of my head now is who have probably got designated hitters and who aren't really going to cover that. And that's in very rare exceptions of Shohei Ohtani and Yordan Alvarez. But I think he'd just be perfect for so many teams that I can't understand why one of them hasn't gone, oh, fuck it, just give him what he wants.
I think there's an element of him being more valuable to the Mets than anyone else too, because of like part of Pete Alonso is like the clubhouse presence and like the clutch moments and like beloved by the city and he's got a cute nickname, Polar Bear. But like unless you are a Mets fan, I don't know that you have that attachment to that side of his game. And not that there's no value in that for other teams. Like I think there is value in, clubhouse leadership and there is value in being clutch and there is value in having a cute nickname, maybe less of that. But I think that stuff is more important to Mets fans and to the Mets as an organization because he has been that leader for them already and presumably would continue to be so if he stays. Whereas for other teams, can you really quantify, what that presence would mean? Or do you just have to look at his numbers, which have declined in the last couple of years anyway, aren't likely to get much better now that he's the wrong side of 30. And like you said, is basically first base slash DH only. Like, yes, it's a nice player to have, but it's kind of a luxury, I think, if you're not the Mets.
Okay, so Rob, you went last the other time around, so give me a spot for Pete Alonso.
I think he's going to completely balls it up. And Yokohama Bay Stars.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, thank you, Rob. That is exactly what I needed from this. Ben?
I'll be boring and say Mets. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Rob's right.
I'm gonna say he's gonna be a Cub.
Cubs. Okay.
So
This is
next we'll move on to pretty much the last good pitcher out there, and that in itself is maybe a question mark. Jack Flaherty had a pretty solid, if not like outstanding season last year. From my eyes, I watched him a lot when he was pitching for Detroit, and he beat up the AL Central pretty good. But it's kind of wasn't particularly hard last season. His numbers got a little bit worse when he was at the Dodgers, because he had a good postseason game and a bad postseason game. He had like the works for the Dodgers. Got himself a World Series ring, so I don't think he can complain too much. But what is the real Jack Flaherty, Ben?
I don't know. He's such an interesting guy to me because I feel like he was so exciting when he was young and first came through with the Cardinals. And it was like, wow, look at this sort of young flamethrower who's going to be, the next ace for this staff. And then I forget exactly the order in which things happened, but there were injuries involved. And obviously his form dropped off, his velocity went down. He ended up kind of flaming out a little bit. And like you say, then had the resurgence. It feels like he should be a lot older than he is. I had to double check. He's only 29. To me, it feels like he's been around for so long that he's kind of had two careers already. But yeah, at this point, I don't know really what you're getting from him. My cynical view would be you don't want to pay him for what he was last year because that felt a bit flash in the panny. But the other side of me would think, well, he's been back to some form for some time now. He's a guy who has led a rotation before. He, was trusted enough by the Dodgers to go out there in big spots at the end of last season in the playoffs. He, is a guy who's had a track record of being excellent. Maybe you do go out and pay him. I imagine he'll end up somewhere in the middle with probably a short-term deal, high AAV, kind of go out there, prove it for 2, 3 years, and maybe you get, more contracts after that. But personally, I would find it risky to give him a big contract now. But I do think it's a bit unfair to Jack to not trust his performance from last year.
Rob, I'm obviously going to come to you right now, just as you're attempting not to sneeze. But
No, genuinely, I could just see my breath. I just saw my breath. I thought, oh my God, my nose is so damn cold. But that's Britain in winter. So yeah, I struggle to get particularly excited about him. He's fine. He is a good pitcher. You can't deny he's been a good pitcher. He's struggled through some injuries, but yeah, he's good. And pitchers are going at a premium, so I can't help but think he is going to get paid. I just can't get particularly excited about him as a player. I don't know why. Nothing he's done against me particularly. I haven't watched an awful lot of him. Maybe I need to watch a little bit more. So yeah, he'll be fine. He'll get a decent top to middle part of a rotation for a team that is on the fringes of contending, and that'll probably be a very good place for him.
yeah, I think he'll probably end up with a 2-year deal and not a 4-year deal, like maybe people were thinking come into the start of this postseason. Ben, you can go first this time. Where is Jack Flaherty going to sign?
Padres.
Padres. Rob,
Uh, Blue Jays, why not? Someone's got to.
I'll go with the Giants.
I can see that.
Now we get into our fourth of the five, Ha-Seong Kim. I think Ha-Seong Kim is such a unique player in modern baseball. I think we've had a revolution in top athletes staying at shortstop and not being moved into other positions, and they are the top hitters and the top defensive players in the league. So that when you still have come back to one of these guys who is like a league average hitter, but a elite defender, sometimes somehow he looks like not as good as like, or even worse than he should because of what is the top end talent in the position from the likes of like Lindor and Ellie and a few others that are out there. Um, am I wrong in kind of like viewing him in that way, Ben?
I don't think so. He's a hard person to put a finger on, and he also is rehabbing shoulder surgery, right? So that is it shoulder, something to do with his arm. So that also complicates things. Where I don't think he'll be back for the start of the season, and you don't know how that's going to impact his fielding, which has up to now been excellent, and how it's going to affect his hitting, which up to now has been hit and miss, literally. So that also complicates things a lot for him. He's not old, and he's shown enough to be certainly a major league starter. But like you say, he is a very different guy to most guys on the market. So I think teams are maybe struggling with exactly how to value him. There's no doubt that he could basically plug into any of the 30 teams and be a really useful player because of his, multi-position ability, because of the fact that he, can hit anywhere in the lineup. He can do multiple things with the bat. He, is a really, useful asset in the kind of Ben Zobrist mold. It's just, how do you put a value on a guy who is in the Ben Zobrist mold but can't draw a walk or, get on base quite as well as that guy could. So a difficult one. I've always been a fan of his, but I do fear that the market for him is probably it's one of those things where every team could use him, but no team is going to like circle him as like that's the guy we want, and maybe that puts him in a sort of awkward in between zone where the market he was expecting doesn't really materialize.
Rob, I kind of looked at two teams that I thought he should go to, given on what they could expect from their players, and
Mm.
then realized that I think he should be a Tiger or a Red Sox. And then you realize these teams are already paying a considerable amount of money for somebody who's not really played much games or played well for these teams. So, um, yeah, like where do you think that we could see Kim landing?
Well, I mean, you look around the league, and shortstops have been a premium when they've been drafted recently. So over the last few years, it's been shortstops who then get farmed out to other positions. That's been very much sort of a trend for player development recently. Like people aren't being signed as second baseman or third baseman; they're shortstops who have moved out. So I think you look around the league and you think the quality of shortstops is actually is pretty damn good at the moment. Like it is a better hitting environment for shortstops than it's been for a very long time. And with the way that they've been moving people around and covering up positions, the defensive side of it maybe isn't as important as it once was. I also looked at, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the Red Sox are a very obvious landing place for him. I thought that too. But then if you look at some of the non-traditional teams, like who needs a decent shortstop, you've got the Pirates. The Pirates really could use a shortstop. Is Isaiah kind of Falefa the answer long term? Probably not. You know, the Rays are stuck in a really dodgy place whereby you know, their top shortstop is probably and rightfully going to prison. Their second best shortstop can't hit a lick, and he's just had a bit of a war of words with the team about arbitration. So, yeah, if it keeps falling, could it be one of these less traditional teams who doesn't like to spend? The Brewers have just lost. As we've just lost Ben Carter, the Brewers have just lost Willie Adames. There's a gap there, and all of these are the non-traditional teams who don't spend traditionally on their free agents. So perhaps that's why his market is dropped out a little bit. Is because these teams who need a shortstop are the teams who don't want to pay too much. So the longer this goes on, the longer those teams are going to start coming into play, unless someone like the Red Sox snaps them up first.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, to me, I look at the Diamondbacks and I look at the Mariners, two teams that you would think that like want to compete, and Geraldo Perdomo and JB Crawford are both fine. They're both better than
Mm.
average, but I think Kim has the potential to be more than both of those players, and you would think that that's something that they should kind of like want to go with.
Yeah, I mean, two more you can throw into the pitch. Yeah, absolutely. And the Diamondbacks have shown a bit of spending, so maybe there is a chance there. But the Mariners is in the same bucket as those other teams. They're not spending big money, so you know he's probably a little bit deflated in what he's looking for. Just he's just a symptom of circumstances that the teams with the needs are not the ones that he really wants to look at.
Okay then, Rob. So I'm gonna go D-backs. Where are you sending Hassan Kim?
I am. Oh, I've written down Brewers or Red Sox or Pirates or Rays. So I will go with my initial thought was the Brewers. So I'm gonna plump for the Brewers as a whole there.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad shout. And then our final top hitter, we will ask Ben if he does ever decide that his will return to join us. Who probably has dealt with the wonders of Sky or Virgin Media or whatever his broadband provider is.
Others
Failing
are available.
others are available. This isn't the BBC. We don't actually have to make those sorts of statements, but it feels so British to do so. Um, uh, our last man on the list is probably one that I personally have no idea about, and that is Jurickson Profar. Like, he had a phenomenal season last year for what he produced. When you get like a four war season after he was great. So you kind of have to go like, okay, what happened there that didn't happen the previous season? He went from, let me just check my figures, a 78 WRC plus to 139 WRC plus in one season. He went from being cack to pretty freaking good. How much do you, or how much you feel teams will be like worried about what happened in like 2023?
Yeah, I mean he's got such a long track history of being meh that it really is more likely going to be an accidental flash in the pan of brilliance. Like we've seen it with a few players. They tend not to have been kicking around the league as long as he has. But your Joey Meneses and what was the guy the Cubs had the year before? Who was he? Nick?
Patrick Wisdom.
No, it wasn't him. No, it was a Nick Schwindel. Was that him?
Shreddelli. But those guys are kind of like coming up first year, like
Came
sort
up.
of
No,
take the plunge.
absolutely. But they came up for a bit and they were bang. They were huge and they've just gone back to being what they are. And I think he might be in disguise in that mold, in that he has been kicking around because he came with that top prospect tag for so long that he's been given more chances than those guys were. So I think it's more likely he's just going to regress quite a long way. I still think a team's going to take a flyer, but I could see him, DFA'd, traded to a non-contender by the end of the season. I hope I'm wrong because he was genuinely quite an exciting player to watch. He seems to have a fantastic personality as well. So I wish him all the best, but I just don't really see it.
Ben, are we being too pessimistic here?
I mean, I'm more inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think there were like genuine, tangible changes that he made to his approach and his swing that helped him reach those levels that he did last year. So, whilst it is a flash in the pan as far as comparing his results to his previous performance, I tend to think there's reason to believe he could keep this up. That being said, even from the first half, second half of the season, right, his numbers dropped off. He kind of came back down to earth. I think you're paying a premium if you think he's going to be able to repeat that performance again. But considering where he was this time last year, he's kind of saved his MLB career, right? I don't see him getting a long-term deal, but he should be able to at least float around for a few more years, earn a bit more money, maybe have an impact as a decent regular on a good team, much as he did last year for the Padres. So, you know, yeah, I wouldn't go and throw the money at him, but I would be happy to take a flyer on him 1 or 2 years as a guy with, upside that he showed last year for the first time in a long time.
So the obvious spot for him to go is back to the Padres, right?
Yeah, it's a bit too boringly obvious, though, isn't it? There's got to be others.
But
Mariners.
also, but also with what's going on at the Padres right now, we haven't discussed it on the podcast, but the suing of the departed previous owner's wife of the previous owner's brothers of trying to take control of the club due to how the trust works is, I think it's going to make a great documentary or television series like Succession at some point in the future. But for anybody probably working in the Padres or wanting the Padres to be a better team, like, if I'm perfectly honest, it's probably contributed to you not getting Sasaki. Like, they're probably not really going to sign anybody because it's all a massive faff to work out what the hell's going to go on. So you boys can obviously choose the Padres as one of your options if you like. But Ben, do you see anywhere else that might be calling out for a left fielder or a corner outfielder?
Yeah, I'm sending him to the Mariners. God, they could use some offense.
Rob?
I'm going to put him on the Cardinals because why not?
Cool. I think he's going to be an Atlanta Brave.
Hmm.
They've
I
done
can
a
see
decent
it.
job of reclaiming wreck pieces in the outfield, so you know, if he does go back down, I think he'll be. I think wherever he ends up going, he gets claimed off waivers later in the season by the Pirates. Though that's how I think it's going to go for him.
Yeah, I
I
was
can
also
see
wondering
that.
whether somebody like the A's might take a punt and be like, if you're, we know they've got to kind of eat some salary and be like, if you're good, we can flip you halfway through the season and get some prospects. I
He
thought
was a
somebody might.
disaster there before, though, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Was it
but
the A's he was awful with? Or no, the Rangers. And then he went to the A's and got a bit better.
yeah. So that gives us the our top five free agents who haven't signed. Let's see if any of us are right. If we manage to go for a complete 0 for 15, that would be, I think, my personal aim for us here. So let's see how well we can do on that front. We have a couple of things left to discuss. I wanted to discuss some teams that have potentially just done some quiet work in the background and have become sneakily good. That we kind of like not aware of kind of like how well they're actually going to be. And so I'll start off um, with the Texas Rangers. Any long-time listeners to this podcast will be aware that we spent most of last season saying quite vociferously that the Rangers will not win the World Series again.
And
And
we were right.
and we went with the odds, and the odds were probably about like 95% in our favor, and we were right. Uh, I will make those bets probably quite a large amount of time, but yeah, no, I think that they've just made a couple of additions to that squad that makes it really kind of simple to be like, okay, like it's not, it's got a lot of key pieces that need to work right. Obviously, it's got DeGrom. Like the squad, if you get anything out of him, it's a big if, but that's already a good position. And the Seager Simeon centerpiece in that like defense as well as lineup is good. But adding in Jock Pedersen, adding in like a couple of other guys to actually just kind of like fill out so the fact they have a squad and you're kind of like, oh, actually, okay, like maybe like this is actually going to be a team that can win that division. And I think it's also like because um, I think it was bringing back Evaldi, like bringing like Karagashioka, but it's like that team is in a division that's winnable because no one else has really put any effort in to win that division. Am I smoking some herbs here or Ben?
I imagine you probably are, Russ, if I know you. But I don't disagree with the rationale you've laid out. I think it makes sense. I mean, the Rangers. I don't think the question with them was ever necessarily about talent. It was more about health, availability. Can they all click at the same time? It didn't happen last year, as we correctly predicted. But I don't see why this year couldn't be. Rob's gone. This year couldn't be the year that things do click for them. So yeah, I think you're on the right track. I mean, the team I was going to talk about has definitely gone under the radar for their acquisitions this winter. That's the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they've gone under the radar because they've not done anything apart from pick Andrew McCutcheon up, as far as I can tell. And I'm not so much putting them forward as a team that could surprise because of their, work this winter or lack thereof. It's more just belief in an extremely talented young rotation. Belief that maybe they do cobble together a couple of signings here late in free agency. Maybe McCutcheon rolls back the years. Maybe a couple of their younger guys take a big step forward. So yeah, if this is more, you came with a very reasoned argument for the Rangers. Mine is more they have pitching. Maybe they learn to hit for the Pirates. But considering the talent that they've got in that rotation, it wouldn't take much for them to suddenly be competitive in what could be a bit of a weird division.
Yeah, they also did spend $3 million on Caleb Ferguson as well. Let us
Oh, I
not
take it back.
forget. So they've got themselves a strong reliever. Rob, who's your sneaky good team?
I don't know if it's that sneaky. They've been really really active because they're desperately trying not to get sued, and that's the A's of no specific location. They've been all over the place. They've got some fantastic pitching in, which they weren't far off last year. You could squint at the team and say, yeah, all right, they're not bad. They've added some good guys. They've had Springs, Leclerc, Severino, they've extended Rooker, who is probably one of the, most likable guys in the sport at the moment. Yeah, Urshela, like he was languishing where he was. That's great. So I can see them genuinely touching up a division that's not the strongest. They're not the greatest, and there's gaps there. There's space for someone to rise to the top and have a little bit of a surprising season, and I can see that being A's of no specific location.
The A's are fun.
Yeah, you know what they are. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from the situation with their stadium, which is an absolute bloody disaster. But yeah, no, they are fun. You're absolutely right. The A's, sorry, not the A's. They're just A's now, and A's are fun. You read the style guide; it's just A's, not the A's.
A's are fun. Cool. So now let's end on something that should be very interesting. Ben, do you want to talk us through traitor contestants as MLB teams?
Well, I'm not up to date, so I'm just don't any spoiler alerts from anything that's happened in the last week.
I was going to say, have you guys been watching it? Because this will go down like a lead balloon if you haven't. But it sounds like Rob, you have.
I have. I've
Ross,
been
have
following
you?
Traitors.
I do not watch.
You not watch it, right? This will make no sense to you. We should probably, contextualize that we're recording Tuesday nights. This is before all of the, you know, final three episodes go out this week. So I might end up looking stupid here, but no change there. But I tried to pair up this year's contestants with, the teams that best represent them. And here's what I came up with. Mina, Baltimore
Hmm.
Orioles. Looked impressive all season, but I fear she could be one and done in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, I can take that absolutely. Yeah, yeah, she's coming towards the end there, but no, Russell's nodding along. Just relax and smoke some more of the wacky. Go on. Uh,
I've got Linda, New York Mets, provided iconic moments galore, but never a serious contender.
yes, she lol next. Yes.
I've got Alexander as the Detroit Tigers. Only really entered the race late and has quickly become the people's favorite, but is almost assured a painful and swift elimination.
Very good.
I've got Charlotte as the A's. going through an identity crisis for reasons that are unclear.
I'm now. Oh my! Can you imagine that the entire team was putting on an accent for the A's? Like they were all putting Welsh. Save that one for the Savannah Bananas. Welsh night.
Welsh
Everyone puts in a
accents.
Welsh accent for no reason.
Tyler will love that. Who have I got? Okay, I've got Dan, who was he got voted off a while ago, but I've got down as the Tampa Bay Rays. Not the most conventional approach, but willing to do what it takes to win. Although he didn't win, so didn't quite work
No,
out.
he didn't. That one I'm less on, but go on. Yeah.
I've got Francesca as the Cleveland Guardians. Here's one for you, Russ.
Ooh,
Almost zero screen time, yet now pops up at the end looking rather dangerous.
that's spot on. That's my favorite one so far.
And then my last two, I've got Joe as the Los Angeles Angels, consistently, confidently, completely wrong all the time.
Yes, yes.
My final one is Yin, who is the Colorado Rockies, eliminated the day the season started.
Spot on. Spot on. Russell, that means nothing to you, but Ben has absolutely aced that. That was absolutely spot on.
So
Oh,
yeah, please do send in if anyone listening has also been watching your also additions to that list or changes that you would make.
Oh, Claudia Manfred.
I should have given Claudia one, shouldn't I? That could be homework.
well, yeah. Is she just Rob Manfred, or do you want to give her a different previous any of the predecessors that could have
No,
taken
I
that
want to
one?
give Rod Manfred her fringe.
Now that would be a look.
Someone do that. Someone who could do Photoshop do that. I want to see Rob Manfred wearing the Winkleman fringe.
Rob Winkle Manfred. No, it doesn't quite
Oh,
work, does it?
oh yeah, he's cooking. He's cooking.
Well, on that note, I think it's a glorious note to end this podcast. Obviously, there is plenty of new work going out on our website, so please do go and have a look at those articles. We have plenty of new contributors now doing some articles about their teams, about their ways of getting into British baseball. All fascinating reads. I love reading how people get into baseball in the UK because there's not many people who have the same route as each other. As I said, coming a few days after you listen to this podcast, you will have one with me and John talking to Kyle Bodie of Driveline Baseball. Another frankly fascinating conversation. Where it was an hour long. I probably could have chatted to Kyle for 4 hours and been perfectly happy with all of my time. I don't know if he would have been happy with his time, but yeah, please do look out for that. There's will be some clips, some preemptive clips for that coming out. Otherwise, Rob, Ben, thank you for your time. You're going to be writing anything? I'm assuming the answer is no. But we go with the same dance as always.
I did sort of make it a New Year's resolution to like try and write a bit more. So I'm gonna say yes, knowing that I'm lying.
I think I've averaged two a year, so I mean it's only January, so the year is young.
Yeah, I've got something in the works about platooning that I want to write up, but I'm spending more fun learning how to use CapCut and other things like that. So,
Can you work
Yeah,
in the
follow us on
film
the
platoon?
socials.
what was that, Rob?
Your challenge is to your piece is work in the film platoon into your piece about platooning.
Well, I'll have to look into it. I do have to say I watched the Pirates of the Caribbean earlier on over the weekend, and I sent a very bad meme to our chat group where
It was.
where I just hadn't watched it in about 15 years since it came out, and just heard Bobosa be like, "Let's lads take a walk," and I was just like, "Ooh, sabermetrics, yay!" Well, thank you both.
It's
And listeners, I hope you have had a good time. Yeah, as always, you can find us on the various socials at _nerds or batflips and nerds. That'll be that X/Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube. As we just say, we are putting these videos out and with clips out on YouTube now. So if you want to see Rob's expression, which was missed on the audio version when I suggested toking on the reefer, then you do have to go do go watch the video format.